Okay, options here. All right, we are live. If you are watching us right now, we are live in across the platforms tonight. We have kind of a fun thing set up for you tonight. We're going to talk some new watches for 2022 that we like, stuff that came out this year. Some of it might be good, some of it might be a little controversial. I'm not sure. You'll have to see and kind of tell us what you think. We're also going to talk about some watches that may have been around for a while that we wish that we owned, stuff that, maybe it's around now, maybe it's been around for a little while, maybe it's brand new, maybe it's from 2022, but we're going to take a look. We're going to tell you what we think. And then finally, our last topic of tonight, we're going to tell you what we would take traveling. That's from the planning document that we had. It's going to be all over the place. It should be pretty good. You're going to see things from very high end to very low end, especially when it comes to travel watches. But as we kick off this summer's live stream series, we're going to kind of go around the room. I'm going to start with Todd. He's at Time Hoarder on Instagram. If you see him, make sure you give him a follow. Todd, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little about background with watches, and then maybe what it is you're wearing, my man.
Well, yeah, first of all, what I've been wearing for the past 2 or 3 days, I tend to put one thing on the wrist and wear it till I move on, but I'll wear them for several days. This was a panic buy last year because it's Carl F. Bucherer, which is full disclosure, I'm a huge fan of the brand. It's one that you don't hear a lot about right now, but it's definitely coming. And but anyway, last year they were closing out a model called the Travel Tech 2. One of their, in fact, there's the original Travel Tech. If I can get up here, right there. So they've been selling that for, oh gosh, probably 10 or more years. And it's been a real popular piece. And in 2015 or 2016, they came out with a Travel Tech 2. But thanks to a lot of the downsizing in the industry, mostly driven by the Asian market, they ended up dropping the Travel Tech 2, which is slightly larger. And this is a 2. Oh, you can see that. But it's an absolute beast of a watch. I believe it's 46 millimeters.
That's a big watch.
It's a big watch, but it's what makes it unique though is that, let's see if we can demonstrate here. Its superpower is in the GMT module. This watch will actually track 3 time zones simultaneously. And it's hard to see on this little knob. It's a pusher, but there's a rotating piece here with an E and a W. So if you're going east, you turn it to that. And if you can see the internal bezel.
Oh, yeah, I see it turning.
That's cool.
So you can track it there. And then you've got the numbers around the bezel and then another internal to allow you to track 3 at once. But what's interesting, you see the little window right there? The little window on the side, you can actually see the mechanism, the GMT module, that they spent over $1 million developing that module. And it's shared across the entire Travel Tech line, the Travel Tech 1, and the Travel Tech 4X. So anyway, it's a great watch. Just, it's a beast of a watch. Absolutely love it. So I've been wearing it for several days, and it had been on my list for a while, but I got it last year when I heard they were closing them out. It kind of forced me to go ahead and get one, and
Gotcha.
super happy I did. So that said, as far as me, former military guy, which is of course where I met Mr. Zach over in Afghanistan, and we're talking watches, but yeah,
and Harley Davidsons. I got to add it. We were talking watches and Harley Davidsons.
There you go. I like it. But yeah, I just got into watches mainly because of the military connection with Rolex, and it just kind of took off from there. So I got involved in some of the online forums. So I've moderated for for Tag Heuer, for Hublot, and I've done dozens of articles for a multitude of brands, and just started making my way around Switzerland, getting to know a lot of the people and the brands, and here I am with Horology Republic. Just looking for good conversation.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, Todd and I go way back. I think that was 2009 when I met Todd the first time, and I was kind of all about Omega Seamasters, which no surprise there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. We had a lot of cigars. We had some fun. We talked watches. We talked motorcycles. It was a good time. So Tyler, my man, what are you wearing?
I have on the Speedy Reduced.
Ooh, good choice.
Nice.
So,
what's the crystal?
Is
it Hesalite or sapphire?
I think Reduced are sapphire, aren't they?
I think it is sapphire.
Really?
I believe so. That's my newest piece that I've gotten. I actually traded my Tudor Prince that was gold plated for it. I'm a big fan of Omega, as Zach knows, so that was kind of a no-brainer there. But I'm enjoying it so far. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people hate on it, but
why?
I don't know. Because it's not the Speedy Pro, and they think that it's somehow lesser. And to be honest with you, having owned a Speedy Pro that you have to wind up every day, an automatic watch, it's where it's at.
No, respect, man. It's still an icon.
Exactly. So. But I think everybody kind of knows me from the other videos and being an admin on the other.
Absolutely.
Platform.
So I am wearing an Epos Chrono. Not Chrono Diver. I was playing with the Epos Chrono earlier. Of course, my autofocus won't work tonight. That's fine. This is one. Ross Gallen owns RMG Luxury, and he knows everybody in the industry in a crazy way. But I've been playing around. Let me see if I can get a good angle with the light reflection. This diver is fantastic. It has the Oris vibes. If you like Oris watches, this one has the same vibes. It does have a day and a date, which is kind of nice. I will try to get some better pictures of the dial because the dial's very good. It's got a nice texture. Very, very cool. You'll see pictures of this in the upcoming magazine. It's not a bad little diver watch. They're not super expensive. I think they're $1,700 like that. So, as far as divers are concerned, it's water resistant to 500 meters. For all the guys who are out there, they're like, oh, I need 200 meters at least. Like, one, we know none of you are going that deep. You're never going that deep. And two, it's great for the money. For $1,500 to $1,700, you'd be hard pressed to find a better watch. I mean, I think it's an ETA based movement. Solid clasp. It's got, the regular, milled out kind of 3-piece thing. It's a very, very nice watch. And Ross over there at RMG Luxury has been very, very kind. Watches show up at my house. I review them. I try to get good pictures of them. I send them back. Ross just keeps them coming. He's fantastic. So make sure you give him a follow. I don't know if he has an Instagram, but he's all over LinkedIn. He's all over the Facebook groups. Ross Gallen. He's great. Great guy. So that segues us into our new for 22 because we have had some fantastic watch drops this year. I will say, to preface all of this, I realize there are some people who are not happy with the fact that Baselworld is gone and that now there's Watches and Wonders that kind of took over Baselworld's place. I wrote an article last summer when we knew that Baselworld was going to be gone. And I thought it was fantastic for watches overall because now instead of a singular drop, brands were kind of free to produce stuff as they wanted. And if this was going to drop then and something else was going to drop later, it could be ready. One of the things that I don't like is when watches come out and they're just not quite finished or design maybe is half baked. And that does happen from time to time. So we're going to take a look tonight at a couple of watches that we like that have come out this year, 2022, that are new. They're just fresh. There's something that we've seen that maybe it spoke to us aesthetically. Maybe it's tough. Maybe it's not, just something that we all like. So Todd, since we're going kind of this way, we'll go that way. So Todd, what's new for 22 that you like?
Well, It's a no-brainer for me. And we've talked about this. It's a bit controversial to say the least. And but honestly, it's the moon swatch. It's one of the things that always shook me. The person who was kind of my mentor in a lot of this stuff, who helped really get me into the industry, was Jean-Claude Beaver, who's in fact, he's the one that helped put Omega back on the map.
Yep.
And built Blancpain and Hublot and the list goes on. But one of the things he also always talks about is being disruptive, and you see a lot of stagnation in the industry.
Yep.
And if disruptive is the yardstick, then the moon swatch, I believe it was a stroke of genius. I think a lot of people are now speaking Omega that weren't speaking at this time just a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of purists that are, poo-pooing the whole concept of it, but in my mind, it is absolutely marketing genius. And I think, in fact, it's not what I think. I've talked to people in the industry. It has the release of the moon swatch has definitely helped with Omega sales.
Yep.
This time a few months ago, nobody wanted to admit that.
Yeah.
Or even consider that, but it has. So it's one of those watches where you have to get past all the pundits and just say, at the end of the day, do I like what this watch is, how it's made, what it stands for? I love what it stands for, because it takes us back to our roots of liking it for no other reason than I like it. Right. So my goal is not to get one or two. My goal would be to have all 11. So for 2022, that would be it. I would like to say the Rolex, the GMT Lefty, but as much as I love Rolex, when they create these impossible watches, you just shrug your shoulders and walk away.
Yeah. So
the day Rolex makes products that are accessible, then I'll take a little more interest in it. And I'm a huge Rolex fan. Mm-hmm. But I
think you were wearing a Rolex when I met you. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, I was wearing my sub. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I love the products, but it's you just can't get what you want anymore. So you just have to look elsewhere. And lo and behold, there are hundreds of brands out there.
That watches themselves have done so well over the past couple of years. And I say couple because I guess, when you think about COVID really kind of pushing people inside and pushing a lot of people towards watches, it's been 2 years now. And watches themselves have done really well because you can't get a Rolex. So a lot of folks are turning around and saying, okay, well, if I can't get a Rolex, where else can I go? Like, what else is out there? What else should I be looking at? And I think that's really driven watches overall to just be more desirable. Brands a few years ago that maybe nobody really like. I always say Grand Seiko is was the hidden gem. And I mean, you could probably insert 200 different brands into that instead of Grand Seiko. But for me, it was kind of one of those ones that, like, if you knew about it, you knew. If you didn't, maybe it wasn't on your radar. But of course, since Rolex has become unobtainium, it's just become one of those things where, now people are like, I can't get a Rolex, but what else can I get? And now they're going places like Grand Seiko. Omega discounts on Omegas are almost unheard of now, just because, a few years ago you could get 20%, but now it's good luck.
It is.
Good luck.
Something I'll add to that, though, is I guess maybe a good thing about the Rolex move, if there is anything good in that, is I think it's forced people to think for themselves.
Definitely.
In that, it's like, oh my God, I've been spoon-fed Rolex for all these years. That's what I'm supposed to have. But now that I can't get that, I'll have to find something else. And they start looking on their own and deciding what they like,
Right.
not what they're being told to like. And
Right.
again, I'm not bashing Rolex. I love the watches, but there is a dark cloud over trying to love a watch that you can't get.
Yeah.
So, but now that people are finally looking around, it's kind of leveled the playing field in some regards, because they're looking at them with kind of an equal lack of bias,
Right.
and they're choosing something, hey, just because I like it,
Right.
and that opens
Right.
a whole lot of brands.
And you saw that with the moon swatch, because people were lined up, for days. People were camping out. I
It
saw
was
the pictures from Hong
insane.
Kong. I saw the pictures from London. I think I saw a couple of photos from like LA and New York City where people were
Yeah.
just out.
Ridiculous.
And yeah, it is.
Well,
It's ridiculous because people were camped out.
Yep.
And they called it bioceramic. Of course, everyone who handled one said,
Plastic.
yeah, it's plastic. But people were camped out for, it was like Tickle Me Elmo. Like people were camped out for Tickle Me Elmo in the 90s because they had to have one for Christmas. And, and this was, the time of the year was a little different, but there's really no difference because people were waiting in line for hours, sometimes days, waiting to get a hold of one of these. And it's just one of those things where it's like, if this was bad, and we had a lot of folks, especially in our Speedmaster group, who looked at this and they said, this isn't real. This shouldn't be looked at this way. This shouldn't be something that everybody says, oh my God, I can't live without it. But you know what? You're right. Like people bought them because they liked them. It didn't have to be expensive. It didn't have to have this crazy movement. They just liked them. Yeah.
It's at some point,
and people know Omega now, and they know Swatch. Now, granted, Swatch
you
owns
go.
Omega, but now everyone's like, I have like kind of a pseudo Omega because it says Omega on the bezel. And the purists know, the guys who are Moonwatch guys, they know. But the real guys that are really watch guys, they're like, this is our next generation of folks who are going to kind of pick up the torch.
There you go.
after
I
us.
like it. I completely agree. And that's one of the things you have to keep a sense of humor. You have to have fun. And that's why that's why I try not to take it too serious. And that, I like the Rolexes and all that, but if you want a good chuckle, I've actually got a box here that just came in with a new piece.
Ooh, are we gonna do an unboxing?
Oh, we can, but again, it's you got to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So,
hey, we're all for that.
That's the reason we called it Horology Republic, was because we knew people came in with all sorts of interest in watches,
And to add another point to the moon swatch, for example, my sister, she thinks it's crazy the amount of money I spend on watches, right? She ran across the moon swatch and she was like, I love this.
There you
She's
go.
like, how much is it?
People have spoken. See, they want to see it. They want to know what you got going on.
But she asked how much a moon swatch is, and I told her the price, and she was like, that's something I would actually go out and buy, and I don't own anything other than a smartwatch. I was like, that is exactly what that is made for.
I agree. It's exactly that, because this is the next. Everybody gets into watches somehow, some way, whether it's a $1,500 watch, a $5,000 watch, or just an easy watch. That doesn't matter. That's what we want. I love some of the
Okay,
the
remember that when
through.
Okay, I'm going to open this, but again,
ooh.
What do we got?
Ooh, it's a Peanuts Timex.
I like it.
It's hard to hate it though.
It's
hard, and people, if you're watching now or you're watching later, because we do keep these on the site, and they do get quite a few residual views. So if you're watching this later on in the stream, you might see some more brand that starts with a T. If you're watching now, you'll see it. But look at that, not a bad watch.
So it's it's a Snoopy watch. I mean, who can hate on Snoopy? But I'll show you the other piece. It goes with these two.
Oh, okay. So are they just different
Oh.
animations at the bottom?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So one's Charlie Brown flying a kite. One is Snoopy the Ace, and this one is Snoopy with the globe in his hand.
Oh,
And so
okay.
it's one of those things when you open the safe. I'll be honest, I don't wear these very often, but now and then I do. I mean, they're automatics,
Mm-hmm.
$250 automatic, and it kind of takes you back when you first heard about watches. What's the first
Yeah.
brand anybody heard of?
The first watch I bought that wasn't well, I was in the military at that point. I just came in and we had Timexes because when you go when
Yep.
you of course when you first come in and they take you to you had to buy like running shoes and just some toiletries. They give you kind of an advance on it was like the Eagle card or whatever at that point. It was like a little debit card and that's what they gave you. And they, it was like $200 or $300 out of your first paycheck they give you. With that money, I bought the pair of shoes that I needed for basic training. I bought some toiletries and then I bought like a $30 Timex, and you didn't have to spend all the money, but you had to have it. And so, Timex in and of itself, a Timex Ironman was one of my first watches I've ever owned.
Yep. Got one.
In fact, I have a 1990s vintage Timex right here, which I absolutely love. It's fun to wear from time to time. Like you said, you don't wear it all that often, but it is there. It is something fun to watch.
Little throwback.
And even Timex, so we retweeted that, or not retweet. Well, it was kind of a retweet. We repost. Yeah, see the Timex Ironman. You can't go wrong with them. And of course, now the multi-functions are insane. We commented on one of the things, and I kind of re-Instagrammed a watch collab. It was right when the Moon Swatch came out, and it was a Timex / Rolex collab that somebody had dreamed up, and it said, Timex and Rolex. So I sent it out there, and of course, Timex picked it up and ran with it and said, "Oh, we love it. Rolex, give us a call." And so Timex, you might see some Timex collabs in the future. Maybe there might be a Heraldry Republic one in the works. We might be working on that. You might also see some cool individual Timex advertising in the magazine.
Well,
Can't
I'm just
forget my
excited.
Timex.
I'm just excited to see them, expanding their automatics.
Yeah.
The bottom line is they're allowing people to get into automatics for $250.
Hard to beat. Hard to beat.
With a name like
that next generation.
Yep.
That next generation. Some young kids right now are saving their money and they're buying a Timex automatic, or maybe they're buying a quartz, but they're buying a Timex and it's getting them into watches. And so if you look at that from the standpoint of, but it's not, a Rolex, or it's not, a Patek Philippe. I get it. We love our Hout brands. We love those. They are amazing. And we have lots of people that own them, but this gets people into watches. And if you hate that, can you really say that you like watches if you're not willing to let people get into them in their own way?
I agree. Here's another one. If you're familiar with the Seiko Presage.
Yeah, those are some nice watches.
Again, for the money, great automatic watch, entry level, but looks great on the wrist at any price point.
So, yeah. So Tyler, tell me what's your watch for 2022 that just came out that you like?
So there's a micro brand I've been eyeing.
Is it the one that's up? You want me to share it?
Yeah, it's a Heron. Yeah, that guy.
Wow.
So it has a Miyota movement. They just started on Kickstarter, like within the past year. They started doing Kickstarter sales, and I've been debating on getting one, but I just like the look of it. I mean, the Roman numeral bezel, it's something different. And I mean, it really pops with the contrast on it. And it's only right at $400.
Yeah, that's hard to hate right there.
I've got kind of a Cartier vibe going with this thing, or Bulgari.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I like that bezel. I like kind of the bronze gold look, and of course at $400, it's obviously not gold, but that bronze look really gives you kind of that gold aesthetic. of course, without spending solid gold prices. And the nice thing about the bronze is it has that tendency to kind of age on your wrist, kind of according to your skin composition and pH, which is something that, of course, you won't get with gold. And not that there's anything wrong with gold. I love gold. Maybe when I'm 80, I'll buy a gold watch. I think I'll have to wait until then because it's just
Careful.
it's one of those things. It's one of those things. But yeah, that's a good looking watch, my man. I've seen Heron a couple times, on Instagram. Some of the stuff that they've had has always looked really good. Yeah, of course, I like a black bezel. I don't know. There's some things about watches and the aesthetics of them that I'm on full blown.
Understandable.
Well, for me, the watch that I like, let me click share. Of course, I'm the one who didn't prep as much here. Let's see. I need to go to a Microsoft Edge tab. There we go. I am a big fan, and this is either going to be super controversial or it's not. I really love the Ultra Deep Planet Ocean. I think these are fantastic watches. I heard a lot of folks when they came out, especially in our Omega Seamaster community, that they were like, this is just Omega's version of the Rolex, deep sea sea dweller. Maybe, sure. You know what? I'll give it to you. Yes, this is Omega's version of it. It's hard to unsee it. It's got the blue, it's got the black, it's got all the things on there. But you know what? Why not? Like, Audi, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz essentially make the same cars. They make the same cars. There's minor differences. This one has this badge. That one has that badge. Maybe this one's a tad stiffer in the suspension, so it's sportier. Whatever. They make essentially the same car, just as most of the American brand manufacturers do. This is no different. This is a watch that if you're like, hey, I'm never going to get a hold of a Rolex Deep Sea Sea Dweller. It's not. This would be the James Cameron one with the the kind of gradient colors there. If you can't get a hold of one of those, you can probably get one of these, and they come in a couple different. And I'm a big fan of their titanium. The reason I didn't pick the titanium, and if you know me and if you watch this, I'm a titanium guy. The reason I didn't pick the titanium is because it doesn't come with a bracelet, and I really, really like the bracelet. Our guy in Munich, Christian, he's tried on one of their pre-sale models of these. He took a bunch of pictures. He sent me a bunch. He posted some in the groups. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. This, for me, for 2022, is one of the better watches I think that have come out. A lot of people might disagree. They might say, well, what about Tudor? Tudor makes black bays now. That's what Tudor does. They don't really make anything else. Yes, they came out with this other chronograph. Tudor makes black bays. That's it. Tudor makes black bays. If you want a black bay and you like that older style, get you a Tudor. And I have no problem with that. For me, this is one of the more innovative watches that have come out. It's a tank. You're going to beat it up. It's not going to stop. It's got all of the meta certifications. It's anti-magnetic. And one of the things we have to think about these days is we have these phones. They all have magnets, right? So having an Omega watch that is already kind of keeping you from the magnetic fields interfering with your watch and harming it and slowing it down or speeding it up, the things that those magnetics do, this really allows you to have a watch that you could take anywhere. Of course, yes, it goes down farther than you could even imagine being underwater with the PSI. But at the end of the day, you have an option here of having a watch this tough that's built for that environment that you can actually go and buy, which I've always been a fan of the Rolex Deep Sea. I've loved it for a long time. But you can't get one.
Can I comment on that?
Absolutely.
Because you said a couple of things I found interesting. You made the comment. You said, if you can't get a deep sea, consider this. I'll be honest. Since they came out with the blue black deep sea, absolutely loved it, and it was definitely on my Rolex wish list. But you know what? Pound for pound, if you were to put these two in front of me, I think I would pick this before the deep sea. I think Omega has done a better job. As for somebody commenting that they're copying the Rolex, well, what's a deep sea? I mean, if you think about it, the Omega was their answer to the Submariner in the deep sea. So you're just coming full circle. You can't get Omega for copying the deep sea when that's it doesn't fly.
The only thing I like about the deep sea, and I've said this to Tyler on so many occasions, he's gonna smile. I have to have a date function on my watches, and it's funny because I was just saying to Tyler today. I said I love date functions. I feel like they're necessary for me personally. It's subjective. It's simply my opinion that I want to have a date function.
I've heard it both ways.
Right, right.
But
I like this so much. All of the Omega watches that I want right now, save for a couple that are 20 years old, none of them have date functions. And I mean, it just speaks to the aesthetic. It almost doesn't even register for me now. Like, I know I want a date function, but I want one of these. I want this watch.
I think that's a great call. Simply put, Omega just outdid the deep sea in my book.
I agree.
I think this has got the curves on this, the proportions are so much nicer. And like I said, in fact, the first deep sea I saw, I'm not going to name names, but there was a commander down at Soda South while we were over there, and he wore a deep sea. And he even tried it on. It was a huge watch and everything. It was absolutely beautiful, but again, did not have the character of the Ultra Deep. So Ultra Deep, definitely 2 thumbs up. It's on my list.
Yeah, same. As soon as I can get into an AD that has one that I can try on, and I don't know, we have one locally that occasionally they get some good pieces in.
You need to get your name in with Al.
I just talked to Al. Yeah, so if you're watching, soon you'll probably we're formalizing our relationship with Armstrong Rockwell right now, and Al is a guy that Todd kind of got me in touch with, and fantastic guy out of Connecticut. He's an Omega dealer. He does IWC. He does Roger Dubuis. The guy can get you anything you want. If you want something, he knows somebody that can get it. Fantastic guy. You'll see him. Maybe he might be on one of these. We talked a little bit today about bringing him on one. You'll definitely see his logo on here. So yeah, it's going to be something that we're doing very soon. We're formalizing our relationship, and Al, I mean, fantastic guy. I told him we were talking about this watch today, so I told him we were going to do this live stream, and he said, "Oh, I think we got a couple of those incoming." And I said, "Take a bunch of pictures because I love it. I absolutely love it. Absolutely." So, next thing on our segment tonight. Which watch, and it doesn't have to be, it can be new, it can be older, it can be, it could be just a year old, it could be 20 years old, it could be 50 years old. If you had a watch that's been out for, let's say, longer than a day, just to kind of open the window here, which would that be? This was kind of next on our list of watches that have maybe been around, maybe not, that we want right now. If you could go out, like, what would your next watch be right now? Todd,
you go first.
Well, it's kind of a loaded question because of the next question. They overlap, and it's interesting. This is the first time I've ever purchased a watch because of a trip. As crazy as that sounds, but in a couple of weeks I'm heading over to Switzerland. And going to spend some time. I'm going to go visit the manufacturer at CFB, Karl F. Bucherer. Then I want to spend some time at the Bucherer store. Now, and for those that don't know, because really in North America, the name Bucherer doesn't ring a bell. But what
in Europe,
people
it's
don't,
all over the place.
Absolutely. They're the largest watch and jewelry retailer in Europe. So it's interesting to make the distinction between Bucherer AG, which is the Bucherer stores, and then Karl F. Bucherer, the watch manufacturer, which is a subsidiary. So when we talk about actual Bucherer, the thing for people to realize, if you haven't heard of them, you will, because several years ago, Bucherer quietly bought Tourneau. And right now in the United States, they're going through a process of renaming the Bucherer. I mean, the Tourneaus are being rebranded Bucherer. and I think the next one is going to be in Las Vegas, and I believe they've already done New York. So what was formerly known as Tourneau is going to be Bucher, and understanding that of course is going to sell all brands. That said, when I go out there, my plan was to wear my Grail watch, which was the Bucher 4X. So while I'm in Switzerland, this is the piece that I'm going to wear. The only problem with this is, it's a pretty chunky piece, and it's a Travel Tech 4X. I made 125 of these. So it's a relatively rare bird. Well, the problem is when I leave Switzerland, I'm doing a whirlwind tour of Eastern Europe, running to Prague, Krakow, Budapest, a few places in between. Didn't want to necessarily wear that piece. So I was looking through my collection. There was just nothing I really wanted to wear, running around Eastern Europe. And then I just looked at my wish list, and one of the pieces on my wish list was the Monero Flyback Retro. It's basically a Sleet SW500 Karl F. Bucher variation of the movement. They call it the 1970. But the nice thing about the Monero Flyback is it's the classic, absolutely classic dial layout. But I felt like it was something that I could wear that's not going to be real flashy. Just very classic looking watch. And for Eastern Europe, it's got kind of a rugged look. In fact, the strap is made out of what's called a kudu antelope. And what's nice about that is it's, so far from my experience, it's indestructible. And I say so far because, and I think I've shown this before. Well, after they came out with that watch, absolutely loved it. And so working, well, I don't know how to say it. I suggested a red gold version of it.
And there it is.
And there it is in 18 karat red gold. And this is actually the very first gold Monero Flyback ever made. And it's a one of a kind. I say one of a kind. If you look at the logo, it's red and white. All the production models that follow this have the logo in gold, and the register hands are black. So, but again, this being a one of a kind, definitely not something I want to run around Eastern Europe. So I bit the bullet earlier this week and decided to get the Steel Monero Flyback Retro. And so it should be here. Actually, it'll probably be here next week, but that's what I'll be wearing through Europe. So that answers the question what I would get.
That's the two right there.
That's it. And so other than that, I mean, of course, there's a whole list. We all keep a list in our heads what we want, but this is absolutely purpose-driven, perfect travel watch, all-round tool watch, and Monero Flyback. It's just such a fun watch to wear. And like I said, the kudu antelope, I can probably demonstrate what's significant about it. So you see the strap, get it in here. If you scratch leather, regular leather, even if you take something metal, like a watch case, and scratch it, and I don't know if you can see it scuffed up a little bit. Do you see the scuffs on it?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
Hold it right in front of your face. There you go.
Good as new.
Yeah.
It's a very resilient type of leather. It has a rustic look, but that's the thing about the kudu antelope is they graze in the thorny bushveld of South Africa. And so their hide is constantly bombarded by thorns. So it just kind of repairs itself.
Right.
So for a rugged strap, that I'm going to be jumping on and off trains and taking a ridiculous amount of photos of watches. It just seemed like
Some of those, if we're lucky enough, you might see those in the magazine if Todd will send some our way.
Absolutely. But yeah, it just seemed like the perfect travel companion for Eastern Europe. And this trip just gave me an excuse to finally get one.
As many trips generally do, as they generally do.
Nothing wrong with that.
So Tyler, if you had a watch, and I know you got it pulled up, here's your this is the one, right?
Yes, that's the one. So actually, whenever Hannah and I were engagement ring shopping at Reed's in Destin, that you bought your
Reeds and I have a long history. I bought my first Omega watch there, Speedy, in Destin.
She was looking around at rings, and of course, I was looking around at watches.
Good man.
So I was over there checking out Omegas, all the new stuff, this, that, and the next. And then I was like, I'm going to go look at Breitling. I've never really paid much attention to them, anything like that. So after we got done looking at rings, Robert, the store manager, came over and he was like, do you know much about them? I was like, I mean, I know a lot about other brands, but not so much Breitling. So he kind of started going into all the history behind it. And then, like, after I heard the amazing history tied to this name, I was like, I want one. So I started looking. Hannah and I both saw that one about the same time, and we were like, yes, that's the one. One day, whenever I get a Breitling,
that'll be it.
Yes, definitely.
Well, that's a good choice, my man.
There you go.
That's a good choice.
It's kind of like one of those timeless designs. I mean, you look at the older Navitimers and they've kept the same style. There's nothing really drastically changed over the years. I mean, maybe the finishing's got a little bit better as the years have gone by, but overall, it's still the same look throughout the years. So,
well, it's as iconic as, as the Speedmasters are. I mean, the Speedy has gone through kind of an evolution of design, not necessarily a bunch of changes, but they have gone through kind of that evolution. And I would argue this is one of those that has definitely done something very similar, where, you have a watch that hasn't changed that much over the years, maybe a couple of variations, a little bit of an evolution, but it's not something that's so drastically different than you would have bought 50 or 60 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I liked about it. It's kind of at its original state, pretty much.
Very nice.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, the thing about this watch is from a mile away, it's a Breitling.
Yep.
That is absolutely the quintessential Breitling.
Yep.
And so I think it definitely says a lot for the brand.
I agree with you, Todd. I think the Navitimer is absolutely, if Breitling was known by no other watch, it would be the Navitimer.
That's it.
And of course, they're known by a few others because they've just had some iconic watches over the years. But the Navitimer, I mean, even the very first Aerospace, and I owned an Aerospace for years. I absolutely loved it. It was probably the most useful watch I've ever owned. But even the very first iteration of the Aerospace was called the Navitimer because it was technically considered like the evolution of it, where before you had all this multi-function watch, like bits in, the slide rule, the chronograph hands, like there was just a lot you could do with this watch. And then when they came out with the Aerospace, which, of course was quartz, that was the next evolution for them, was to make it a quartz watch that had the computerized bits where you could then do more calculations. And I mean, they went to go to call it the Aerospace later and then came back out with this, which was, the Navitimer. But yeah, if there's one iconic Breitling and they were known by no other, I would argue it would be this one. It would be this one.
No doubt.
So I guess it's my turn.
It is
another plug for Armstrong Rockwell. I saw on their Facebook shop that they posted a watch for sale. This is not that listing that I picked up because I went to look for it earlier, couldn't find it. Maybe they sold it. I don't know. I didn't ask. I just talked to Al today. I didn't ask him, but I like this watch. Now it's if you know me, this is not a normal watch for me to like, but it's a Roger Dubuis. It is the Excalibur 45 millimeter. Why do I like this watch? Well, I don't know. I like the design. The colors look good. I like the dark one. So these come in black and these come in a blue, as far as I know. And so both of them are close enough, the black and the blue, that they're, it's hard to tell what's what. But this watch, this might be the blue one, actually. It's hard to tell in the pictures.
Yeah.
As many pictures you can see, I like that. I like the clasp. It's so different. It's just so different.
That's
You've got the little kind of teeny tiny rotor there. You can see the barrel. Like I don't know, man. This Roger Dubuis, I like it. And I'm not usually a sub-seconds guy. I'm not usually someone who likes kind of a smaller inset. I like the full second hand, but man,
it's different.
I don't know what else to say. I love it.
It's and that's one of the things about Roger Dubuis is just the true uniqueness of them.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to confuse that for a sub or a Seiko.
Not at all.
No. I got to sneeze, guys.
Bless you.
One of those things I try to save till after the stream, but sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you can't. Okay. We will move on to the bit where we're going to talk about, this is me trying not to sneeze in the middle of the stream again. We are going to move on to what was the last bit that I was thinking of? Travel watches. Now, Todd has talked a little bit about the travel watch that he thinks is the best. So for now, we're gonna let Tyler take it away.
Okay, so some of you may know that I had the Tudor GMT a while back. I regret selling it, but I feel like that's a great GMT travel watch. I mean, it's I like the silent sneeze going on over there. But I love the GMT. The price point's fair on it. And I mean, it still has the pop to it that you'll want whenever you're out elsewhere, like out traveling, dinner, so on and so forth. The runner up to that, so I actually have a trip coming up that I'm going to Cuba on a mission trip. And I'm planning on taking the 2254 because, I mean, we're going to be around the beach area. And I feel like it's not a flashy dive watch. It's kind of laid back. And that's kind of what I'm going for on that trip. So still have the water resistance if I'm at the beach. Still all around great watch for travel. But those are my two picks for a good travel watch.
Nice.
Sounds good. Sorry, I had to sneeze again. Doing my best not to interrupt the stream with it. One of those days. Allergies been bad around here. Anyhow, I'll share mine.
Yeah. I mean, hey.
There's a lot of people that have travel watches and they're very, very, very expensive because they want to make those memories with their watch. And I will be the first one to say that our watches should spend time on our wrists. They're not something that should sit inside of a winder. They shouldn't sit inside of a box. This isn't something that you should take and say, "Ooh, I can't do anything with it because it's too precious." Even if that's just a trip down to your local bar or to Florida or Hawaii, we're stateside. So, of course, our references are going to be stateside. But in my view, I've liked this watch since it was released. Timex themselves they do have a press version. I'm working on getting a hold of one just for a week or two to just play with and of course, take some pictures of. But in my view, if you wanted to buy a watch that you could take anywhere and just not worry about it. One of the things that Todd said is he wants to take his one of one Karl F. Bucherer. However, It's one of one. It's
Exactly.
it's not something that he could very easily replace
Mhm.
if something happened to it. Now, not that I mean, there are stories of things happening to people's watches. They are out there. It does happen. Of course, we want everyone to be safe, be vigilant, think about what's going on around you. However, don't take your one of one Karl F. Bucherer solid gold somewhere that if you lost it, you'd be like,
You're in trouble.
I'm in some trouble, right? You don't do that. So the other option, in my view, is this. It's absolutely this. It's you take something like a Timex GMT, um, and it's $200.
Mhm.
It's $200. You take this with you. It's got GMT, so if you're really traveling far outside your home time zone, you've got something you can. Oh, I need to know what time it is wherever I am. If you can't add, this will do it for you, or subtract. If you can't do that, this will do it for you. And for $200, for $200, you can take this anywhere in the world. Now, are there downsides to this? Of course, the old adage of like, why do you take a Rolex? And of course, Tom knows Todd knows what I'm talking about. It will get you out of trouble. A Rolex will, if you need to get out of trouble. This Timex will not. It will not do the same thing. But as long as you're not going somewhere where you're like, I may need to get the hell out of Dodge very quickly, and you're like, maybe I'm on a cruise ship or something could get stolen, and of course, they're not going to find it. Or I'm going here, I'm going there. I'm going to Quintana Roo or something, and I'm going to go all over town. This is something I feel like you could take with you. And it's a Timex. It's water resistant to I think 50 meters or 100 meters more than you need. Even yes, you watching now or later, who's going to be in the pool and tells me that you need 200 meters dynamic pressure. You don't make enough dynamic pressure. You don't. I don't care who you are. You don't make enough dynamic pressure to put this thing in any sort of danger in the water. You don't. You just don't. This thing is great all around. And again, for $200, if it got yanked or it got broken, buy another one. The nice thing about Timex, they have ADs everywhere. Target is an AD. I think Walmart is an AD. So like you can go somewhere easily and get one of these. So whether you like Timex or not, if you were looking for a piece, and we get this question a lot across our platforms, hey, I want to travel, I want to go here, I want to go there. What watch should I take? Would you take your Seamaster? Would you take your IWC? Would you take this? We get that question a lot. I get it to my inbox, not as often anymore as I used to, because I usually tell people to do this, and then they don't want to hear it because they really want someone to tell them to take their one of one somewhere, and I'm like, don't do it. But this to me makes a lot of sense. So as far as a travel watch goes, if it were me, something that I would take that wasn't your 2254. If you lose that,
I'm still going to be upset.
You're going to be upset, right? Like, yeah. And I'm not saying like it gets stolen. Like maybe you lose it.
You never
know. Something happens. Something happens. You're going to be upset.
You bring up a good point, though, and it's something to think about as whether you consider yourself a collector or, that's kind of a weird term. But if you're into watches, one of the things that can help you shape your collection is looking how different watches apply to different aspects of your lifestyle.
Yep.
So, for instance, like you're saying, for travel, having a travel watch, I think that is such a relevant question. As a matter of fact, are you familiar with the Seiko Arnie?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is an original 558 5009 from 1985.
Ooh.
And this was the watch I got when I first joined Special Forces. It was a common watch back then, and some units, especially Navy NSW and others, actually issued them. Some of the Ranger units issued these. But where it became famous was when Schwarzenegger wore it in Predator, and I think 5 different movies. He wore a version of this, and that's why it became nicknamed the Arnie. But a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, Seiko announced they were finally going to do a reissue. And so I thought, being a fan of the Arnie's, see if I can get this in there. And there's a reason I'm bringing that up. So 3 of these are actually the reissue ones, except they're solar. The solar Arnie's. This one just came in yesterday or day before. So every few months I'm adding. There are 2 more I need to get to complete the collection. But back to what you were saying, these are lifestyle watches for me,
right?
Because I've got, when I go rock climbing, obviously I don't wear one when I'm on the rock, but going out to the crag, I want to have a watch that I can take off, leave in my pack. If it walks away, if I, or whatever, I'm not going to be crying in my beer. So I got this one that I wear specifically when I go out hiking or rock climbing.
Mm-hmm.
And then for water sports, swimming, you've got the Patty version.
Yeah.
And then for cycling, of course, I'm big into road bikes and gravel bikes. So I got this one. So the nice thing about these, they're Seikos. If something happens to it, wipe my tears and order another one.
Right.
But the thing is, they have a very specific purpose in my life. All of these watches get worn. And so, like I said, I think when you start building your stable of watches, it's great to look at how they're going to be used and get ones that are perfect for that. Like you said, one for travel, one's for water sports, whatever. And if nothing else, it gives you an excuse to get another watch.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I say, we used to get that question a lot, and like I said, I think we probably answered it enough that people kind of know what they're going to get when they ask it of us now. But people used to reach out personally, and they would say, "Oh, I'm going on this trip. Should I take my Seamaster? Should I take my Speedmaster? Should I take my Breitling? Should I take my Datejust?" And I'm well aware of the fact that our watches tell a story. That's one of the cornerstones that we built Horology Republic on, was that we wanted to tell the stories of these watches, from the easy Timex, the easily acquirable Seikos for $100, $200, $300, $400, all the way up, the price range. We wanted to tell those stories, and there are people that take their Richard Milles and their 6-figure Roger Dubuis and they take them on every adventure that they go on, and that's fantastic. Most of the people that are doing that can replace it if something happens. Not me. Not me. I'm at the point where it's like, if I have this Seiko, I'm going to take it, or I'm sorry, this Timex, I'm going to take it with me. So I keep thinking about the Arnie, because I'm like, oh, that's a 1985. I love that. That's a great watch. But like, if I take this Timex somewhere and it walks away, right? Like if we're rock climbing, if we're diving, if we're cycling, if we're, just exploring a port because you're on a cruise, they do the port calls where you go in there. If you're doing that, you're not losing something that's just very much near and dear to your heart. And not that this couldn't be a watch that's near and dear to somebody's heart, because I don't want to give the wrong impression that it wouldn't be. But, for me, if I was going to travel and it was somewhere that I was just not sure about the security of my things, some places I would go that I'm very sure of the security of my things, it wouldn't make that much of a difference, But if I'm just like, hey, I'm going to buy one watch and I'm going to travel with it, whether it's for better or for worse, this would be my choice.
There you go.
Now I think I'm in the market for one.
Well, it's just cheap enough that you could go almost anywhere and pick up another one. Like I said, I left a comment on Timex. I think they posted something else. I think it was the Malibu edition, which I think is aimed at women. It's got some different colors on it, but it's essentially the same watch. And, and I said, Timex, baby girl, you're killing it right now. Like, everything's good. Your ADs are everywhere. You can get a hold of one of these. Yeah, all of these other manufacturers could take a page out of your book for how easy it is to get a hold of a Timex. And they liked it, and they sent me messages, and they said, "Well, send us an email. We can do some collab on Instagram." So maybe we'll do that. But at the end of the day, it's I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to get that bent out of shape if your Timex doesn't work or it gets stolen. That's what I think.
You can't knock Timex
No.
at all.
So it's by the way, I just uploaded an image, and the reason I brought that up, I was just talking about. Yeah, there you go. That's the one of one Monero flyback, and so I did a photo shoot when I first got it, and that's probably my favorite photo. Interestingly, the prop that it's on is a kudu antelope horn. So
I love it.
So if you can imagine that in stainless steel, that's my travel watch.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know. I mean, you got the hookup at Bucharoo, and I know a lot of the guys that do that, and that's part of it. And I think if you're watching, like I said, either live or later, for some residual views, if you have a hookup at a brand and they've been good to you, you should go with that brand every time. I mean, we've talked in the past about brand ambassadors and whether you love them or hate them. I know Hodinky just had an article in their new magazine volume about why brand ambassadors work. But the way I look at it, like, sure, George Clooney is an Omega brand ambassador, and most of us are not and probably will not be in that league. But it's just one of those things that I think that at the end of the day, if you are a person who has a connection to this or that, or you just love the brand, it's something that you should definitely take and hang on to, because we are all at the end of the day the ambassadors of the brands that we love, whether you have a connection or you don't. If you have one or you don't, it doesn't matter. If you like it, you spent your money on it, you're an ambassador of that brand,
Sure.
And I honestly think that because there's a lot of stereotypes, right? And we talk about the Rolex stereotype. Who buys the Rolex? Who's this? Who's that? And you might see some content from us in the future when we're out making short videos at a restaurant where we're like, okay, I'm eating here and this is the watch I'm wearing. What kind of person am I? And it's all satire and it's all in good fun. But I think at the end of the day, it's just one of those things where no matter what brand that you like and wherever your status is, you're still a brand ambassador for that brand, because other people might meet you and say, okay, here, I saw so-and-so, I saw Todd, with the Grand Seiko, what does that mean? Like, oh, is this the type of person? Like, what goes on? And, just like we said with the Moon Swatch, people get into watches wherever they are, wherever that may be. And sometimes it's at the low end. Sometimes they've been working at a company for 30 years and they've got a lot of money and they just want to dive right in. So, who they meet. And I know Todd talked earlier about having mentors that kind of got him into the industry and got him into watches. I think a lot of us can relate to that. A lot of us have been able to say, so-and-so got me into this. Al just got me into Roger Dubuis last week. I didn't know that much about him until Al told me about him. I was like, oh, I got to go look.
Well, the starting point I'd recommend to anybody out there that's just getting started in this, the first place to start is with an AD.
Yep.
Find an AD, establish that relationship. I didn't know Al Armstrong. I had no idea who the guy was. And when I finally was fortunate enough, I was, saved up deployment money when I was in Afghanistan, and finally was able to get the Hublot that I was looking at. I wasn't familiar with the brand. They were still fairly unknown, but Hublot put me in touch with this AD in Connecticut, which was Al, and building that relationship with Al has been one of the most important connections I've ever made in the industry, because he's been kind of a mentor to me, because the guy is passionate about watches. And as you'll find with whoever your AD is, I'm not trying to point to anyone, but when you build that relationship, what comes out of it if there are deals to be made, maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. But there's something much more important. Service. I've had to send a new blowback for service, and my AD Al made it nice and easy. But more importantly, they get you access to the unobtainium.
Mm-hmm.
The like this one that after I got my first new blow, and then saw the ad for the Formula One Hublot King Power.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out only about 50 of them came to the U.S.
Hmm.
And Al had one, but it was that relationship that I had developed with him that when his one came in, it came to me.
Yeah.
Not because of a crazy discount or anything like that, but because of that relationship with the AD. So, like I said, that's the biggest piece of advice I could give to anybody getting into watches is find the AD, whoever it is, and build that relationship.
Yeah. We get that question a lot, where somebody says, should I buy here? Should I buy there? And don't get me wrong, I get it. Joma Shop, eBay, those, you can save a little bit of coin if you do that. But the relationship is really what you should be going for. Because we say all the time, I probably say it, I don't even know if I can count that high, enough times a year where I tell people buy the seller, not necessarily the watch. And that's been a thing. You've been on Time Zone and some of the other sites that have been around for a long time. Todd's been into watches probably longer than I've been alive. That's just the way. But I mean, that phrase has been a thing for a long time. And and just like you said, you have that relationship with somebody, whoever it may be. And that's the nice thing is that the guys at Joma Shop are not going to call you when they have something new, unless you know them like personally and you've bought $200,000 or $300,000 worth from a seller. They're probably not going to call you. And I mean, it's just that's the thing that you get. When I bought my first Speedy, it reads in Destin. It was the very first Omega I've ever owned. It reads in Destin, which is kind of funny that when Tyler told me about it. I bought it. Of course they talk, well, they bring you wine. They brought me wine. They gave me a gift card to, at that point, there wasn't that many, well, I mean, there were enough restaurants, but there weren't that many. I went to, what's the Irish pub there in Destin, Tyler? Not Murphy's.
Oh, I know exactly.
So that they gave me a $100 gift card there. They made me feel like it was such a special event. And yes, I probably could have saved $200 or $300 if I'd bought it on Joma Shop. Sure, absolutely. But then anytime they ever got anything else in, I was on the newsletter. I knew first when new Omegas were on their way. They were selling Omega. They were selling Breitling. I think they sold Tag Heuer. I want to say they sold Hamilton. All the price points. Whatever it was you wanted. Just like Todd said, you started getting calls and notifications that stuff was coming in because you were a customer. They wanted you to know.
I'll tell you, probably one of my best examples too was back after I got my Submariner, and then the Daytona caught my eye. But how the Daytona is
hard to come by.
But fortunately, I had built that relationship with just one Submariner, just one watch. And I had built that relationship with the AD that when the Rolex rep came in, my AD gave him the third degree about, when we're going to see a Daytona, yada, yada, yada. I've told Zach this story that he said, I've even got one client that wants a Daytona that's getting ready to head overseas with his sub. And the Rolex representative said, wait a minute, you've got a soldier wearing a Submariner to Afghanistan? He said, yeah, he wears it on every tour. And the guy was grabbed by that. Next call I get from my AD is, do you want a black or a white face?
Yeah.
And so that relationship with my AD translated to Rolex USA. And as a result,
You can pull it down.
Oh yeah.
I got my Daytona.
There it is. There's
Absolute
the Daytona.
unobtainium.
Yeah.
That was a result of that AD relationship,
Right.
as were the Hublots I got from Al.
Yeah. Well, and I know that buying watches in 2022, and maybe this is a good topic for the next live stream of how do you buy a watch in 2022, because we could answer that probably so many ways. But buying a watch in 2022 a lot of times means that you're kind of up at a certain hour and you pull out your charge card and you flip through and you buy it, and a lot of times that's what happens. But in an era where we've all wanted that human contact for the last 2 years, and we're kind of coming into a position now where we're getting that human contact again. Restaurants have been open for a while, bars have been open for a while, people can go and do what they want to do for a while, regardless of how you feel about it. Like, we're getting that human contact again. In my view, it's time to go to your AD again. It's time to go back there, and even if you just go in there and say hi, introduce yourself, and try some stuff on. And maybe you're not going to buy today, but it's someplace that you would go. There's just something about being able to go into a place, find the watch you want, potentially you buy it, generally you do, but sometimes you don't. But basically being able to go in there and try it on, because we get a lot of questions about, should I buy this or should I buy that? And almost exclusively we say, go try it on. Go try it on, because where are you going to do that? You're not doing it at Joma Shop.
Right.
I like Joma Shop. I'm not trying to say negative things about Joma Shop. Don't get me wrong. I really, really do like Joma Shop. But, if I'm looking for a used watch and I already know what I want, I'll go to Joma Shop.
And if you've gone and tried it on elsewhere.
Right. That's what I mean. If I've tried it on and it's something I want used.
But see, and that brings one of the real kind of moral dilemmas, because inevitably a person will go into an AD trying to watch, say, I like it, and then run out and go to Joma Shop and pay a couple $100 less and get it. Well, you've just really screwed that AD, because he's the one that made the sell.
Right.
And
yeah, but you don't get that. I like the white glove service. It doesn't happen often. I like being treated like a king.
I agree.
I really do. I like it.
But see, my point is, you have to think about that. That's why if, we all like to be looky-loos in all the watch shops.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go in, I tell them, I'm very quick to tell them, I'm not buying. I just want to look. I'm not going to, if I have no intentions of buying something, I let them know up front.
Right. They can help other customers at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. What you don't want to do is waste their time.
Right.
And so there's that mutual respect. It doesn't mean you can't look at stuff, but yeah, don't waste their time.
Right.
Exactly.
But going back to what I was saying about the AD, is the loyalty goes both ways. When I've recommended Al for years, from the first watch he sold me, the service that he provided, the mentorship, everything that came with that. He's the one that made me believe in ADs, and I've sent him some business because of that.
Well, and honestly, when you said to me, you've got to meet Al, you've got to talk to Al, he's a good guy. When I talked to Ed, the first phone conversation we had was 2.5 hours long. Just because we just talked about everything under the sun when it came to watches. We talked about what we liked, what we didn't like, and when you have an AD, that's willing to just talk to you about watches, I think that's one of the nicest things when you get someone that likes watches, that works in the industry, and they're not just a salesman. Salesmen come and go, and they're all over the place, and we all have stories about, I went into such and such AD and I was talking about such and such detail, and the salesman had no idea and I couldn't believe it. Fine. We all have a story. But when you get in with someone like that who can talk about watches with you, and and our whole thing was, let's formalize a relationship and see if we can't send some business your way. Yeah, really, he was the beneficiary of that. he wanted to sit, he wanted to talk, and it was just great to talk about watches overall, not just this one or that one, but the industry, and and where he thinks it's going, and what it was like in the past, and to just sit and talk to someone who'd been in the business for so many years, and to just kind of enjoy that moment. And you get that when you go to ADs. Again, I really think the human connection is important. It's really, really, really important for us as a species. We like it. This is kind of our way of connecting with a lot of the viewers and being able to show you who we are. So we're kind of more personal, and less just people who type some stuff on a keyboard. But
Sure.
For
Well,
us, it's that way.
And it's also part of the whole experience of owning a watch when you're able to talk to an AD about it. I've got a rule of thumb when it comes to talking to ADs. I want to talk to somebody that knows more about that watch than I do.
Right.
Exactly.
And so every time I talk to Al, I learn something.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the experience rather than the kind of mindless, soulless void of the internet where you just plug in your credit card number and a watch magically appears. Having a knowledgeable AD enhances the experience not just of purchasing but of owning.
Right.
Right. So you want to be excited about a watch.
Right. Well, and that's why I say, to me, it makes a lot of sense to have that kind of king experience that I feel ADs offer. And some people like it, and some people, they don't care if I don't care if I get a glass of champagne and some dinner gift certificates, and everyone kind of comes over and congratulates me on my purchase. But for me, again, it's the subjectiveness, right? We all watches are subjective, and we like what we like. But I'll tell you what, man, like, feels good. Feels good to have someone be like, let's pop the champagne. You just bought a watch. Whether I'm buying $1,000 Hamilton or whatever. I mean, Reed's did that. The next night, because you get a timeline of these are the people that have joined our family. They sent out a newsletter. The next night, somebody went and bought a Hamilton, and they pulled the champagne because they had pictures, of these are our customers who are they like to call it their family, Reed's and Destin. And but they would do that. They did that. It didn't matter. You bought a $900 Hamilton, you bought a $9,000 Breitling. You still got that feeling of like, hey, this is an event. And like, yes, you're right. You can swipe card, get watch, push button, getting banana. It's become that easy. And that's true. That's true. And there are people that prefer that, but as far as the AD goes, I don't know. I like it. It's just something I like. I don't get to feel like I'm a king that often, really, at all. And it's nice.
Well, something that you don't see too often that I'm not going to run to the safe because I was going to get something to show you. But one of the things that Hublot did really well under Mr. Beaver, Jean-Claude Beaver, was that when I was the moderator on Time Zone for the Hublot forum, if somebody came on the forum and said, and put a picture of their watch, says, hey, my name's blah, blah, and here's my new Hublot, I just wanted to share.
Yeah.
Without fail, usually within 24 hours, there would be a post on that forum from Jean-Claude.
Yeah.
The CEO of the company.
Right.
Who followed the forums. Think about that for a minute.
That's cool.
And he would come on and say, thank you for choosing Hublot. Please send me your serial number and I will send you my personal handwritten guarantee extending it for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Extending the 2-year warranty to 5 years.
Yeah.
And when you do that, usually within a week or two, you get this envelope FedExed from Switzerland with this little card, and you open it up with a handwritten note. Thank you for blah, 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 blah. Jean-Claude Beaver, hand signed. I thought, what? That's kind of a cool trick. You have your secretary, do these by the dozen. Until I got my oceanographic. That was my third Hublot, and posted a photo on the forum, and I get a thing from Mr. The same thing, please send me your name and address, and I'll do my personal handwritten guarantee. I'm like, well, I'm coming out for my first visit here in a couple of months. How about I just do it then? And he said, sure. And literally, I went into his office and he pulled out one of those things and sat there and wrote it out by hand right in front of me.
Yeah.
And signed it, just like the ones he was mailing to everybody. And I thought, well, that's still pretty cool. But the one thing that really gave it away was when I was talking to his assistant, Carrie, one time, because somebody in my forum had posted, but they hadn't received that guarantee from, which really surprised me. So I reached out and asked Carrie. She said, yes, he's been in Singapore or wherever, and he won't be back till next week. We've got a whole stack of them for him to sign.
Right.
So, I mean, the whole process was held up because he personally hand signed every one of them, and they didn't go out until he was available to do it.
Right.
And that, again, that level of attention, he's of course no longer with LVMH Group, so I don't know how they are now with it, but
Right.
that was certainly
hopefully something similar, because as a watch guy, that'd be worth its weight in gold. If you could get something like that sent out to you, where it's like the man at the company is like, hey,
Oh,
here you
yeah.
go. We're glad to have you as a customer.
Yeah.
And I think that happens more often. And that's kind of the AD's way. To bring out the champagne and take a picture. And make you and give you a gift certificate to dinner. Because that was the idea. You bought a watch, we can take care of dinner. And they had a couple different restaurants you could choose from. That particular one. Not all ADs do that. I'm not saying go out and expect dinner from an AD, but what I am saying is that sometimes ADs do that, and that's their way of saying, thank you for being a customer, just like, Jean-Claude did with, his hand-signed letters saying, thank you for being a customer. And at any rate, wherever you get it, you don't really get that from eBay, just saying,
Right.
you don't get that from eBay.
So,
Well, we've been doing this for almost an hour and a half. So I think what we'll do now is we'll go around, we'll give kind of a final word, and then we will inevitably end our live broadcast. This is kind of kicking off our summer series. One more time, our magazine is coming out this fall. Make sure that you stay tuned for that. I think I'm going to do kind of if you sign up during the first couple weeks of either July or August. We haven't decided exactly which one we're going to do yet. If you sign up during like the 10-day period, you can get your first issue free. It won't cost you a dime. You can subscribe later if you love it. But I think that's something that we're going to do. So stay tuned. Right now, we'll go around the room one more time. We'll do kind of a final word, and then if we do this in a week, it'll be July. So I had to look at the calendar. It's over there. Yeah, years flying by.
Pun intended.
Yeah, just keep an eye out for when we do the next one. Like I said, if it's while I'm in Eastern Europe, it'd be great to do a live stream from Krakow or Prague or somewhere. But let's just see how the Monero flyback does.
Yeah, like said, I'll be interested to hear about that.
Definitely going to be taking a lot of photos of my travel watch, and so stay tuned for that.
I may have to take Zach's advice and pick up one of the Timex GMTs for my upcoming trip. I mean, for the money, that would be more ideal than I think my Omega. So he had a good
you're ruining me too, actually, because when Tyler and I were talking before this kicked off, I was talking about how I'm really wanting to jump on board with an Omega.
Yeah.
And because that's something that I'm sorely lacking in my arsenal. And I had it narrowed down to 3 watches. And then you reminded me of the Ultra Deep.
Ooh, see.
I've been trying so hard to forget that one because I want it so bad. And no, I mean, 2 thumbs up. That was an absolute golden choice.
Yeah.
Real happy for what the brand's done with that.
Yeah. Well, as soon as it came out, I liked it. I really, really liked it. You know, it
Yeah.
was just one of those things where I was like, yeah. And I would love, I would wear the titanium one. It just comes on a NATO strap. Nothing wrong with NATOs. I absolutely love them. But if it came on a titanium bracelet, and maybe in the future Omega will, maybe they'll make a titanium clip-on bracelet on there. It's got the special manta lugs on the titanium one. So, you know, there'd be a little bit of engineering, but I don't think anything Omega couldn't do. They're very capable engineers over there. So
If I've got time and if they'll allow it, I might even try to shoot some iPhone video at the Booker store.
yeah.
That'd be cool.
Because again, they've got all the different brands there. Yeah, let me see how things go, and maybe I can pull that off while I'm there and put together.
Yeah,
quick-
we'd love that. We'd love that. I think one of the things we might try to do, I guess for my last word, we are thinking about, well, and I say thinking, we're in the process of planning a magazine launch party for the West Coast. I've got a couple of guys out there, a couple of Marine Corps veterans, since a lot of this is kind of veteran owned, veteran run. You know, there's a lot of us kind of, you know, behind the scenes doing this. There's a couple of guys out on the West Coast that are looking to do this in La Jolla. So we are going to do a meetup. We've talked about doing Horology Public meetups, like Horology Public, OSC, Omega Speedmaster. You know, really it's for all the brands. It's not just those.
Yeah.
Those are just the groups we run. But, you know, we're thinking about doing a meetup, and then we thought, why not make it a meetup / you know, launch party for the magazine. So we're looking at late October. There will be more details forthcoming. I've got my guy out there kind of running down some venues for us to look into. And I know Todd had some ideas about some brands that might be there, you know, to help us launch that. So there will be some more information coming. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing some big kind of official announcements pretty soon within the next probably 3 to 4 weeks. You'll see a lot of really important official announcements coming from us. At least they're important to us. So
Great. Can't wait.
at that end, we will see everyone next time. We're going to try to do these once a month. We might try to do them twice a month. It all depends on everybody's availability. And because it's summer and it's one of the first summers we can all travel, we'll see how that goes. So you will see us at least once a month this summer. But from all of us at Horology Republic, catch y'all later.
See ya.